And joining me today to bring their unique mixes of perspective to these stories is the founder of Truth in Media, Ben Swan, legal and media analyst, Lionel Media, and the host of The Big Picture, the one and only Holland Cook. Thank you all for coming on. I want to start with military drones now being used and operated in militaries in close to 100 nations around the world. Ben, I'll start with you. You actually made headlines all the way back in 2012 when you questioned President Obama about his drone kill list. Is this proliferation of drone use something that you saw coming, something that, when you questioned Obama, this was the end game, every country battling with unmanned aerial vehicles?
I think we all kind of knew it was going to head that way. Back in 2011, 2012, and you're right, 2012 was when I questioned the president on the legality of it, and especially on the killing of U.S. citizens using those drones. Drones at the time, they were the new hot form of warfare. Everyone talked about how this was the future of warfare, and they were right. But I think back in 2011, if you look at the articles that were being written at that time, the question was about what countries should the United States sell drones to, and who should they give them to? Well, now we're living in a time when the three top countries that produce drones are the United States, Israel, and China. And as you said, 95 countries have these in their militaries, are developing sophisticated drone programs. And let's not forget, these are countries, by the way, like Azerbaijan and Nigeria that have these as well. But not just that, but not just nation states, but even like drug cartels have their own drone fleets and drone programs through which they're training drone pilots. So it is larger than just a nation state issue. It has truly become the future of warfare, and it's a pretty scary thing.
It is rather scary. Why do you think, and I'll ask you, Lionel Holland, why do you think that we have suddenly moved into this idea that, okay, it's easier to use a drone? And does that make getting into warfare easier when you don't have to worry about the pilot, you don't have to worry about that, it's just some guy, in a Winnebago in Arizona, in our case, pushing buttons. Is it easier to go to war now?
Are you into mind control? That's exactly what I'm going to say. Three things that concern me. Number one, semantics. We call it drones, UAVs. Did you see this thing? This is basically a plane. This is the F-15, 25. This is not a drone. Number two, it's not so much the drones that scare me, it's the artificial intelligence aspect, where somebody may relinquish one day to these things to work operationally when you see fit. But the third part, which is the most important, which you allude to, since the invention of the longbow, when people absented themselves and removed themselves from mano a mano, if you've got some kid wearing a weird suit and a Quonset in Vegas playing a toggle game switch on something, it may not have the same feel of war. You may not see the children, the bodies splayed and vaporized. You may just see, you might use words like engage and sorties and that. So all of those things, this is a prescription for unmitigated disaster. Period.
Do you feel the same way, Holland?
Whenever he talks about artificial intelligence, I get the willies, because remember in Battlestar Galactica, don't let the computers talk to each other.
It's true.
But what you said about the bow and arrow, we're really on a continuum of technology. Remember in the presidential debates where Mitt Romney says, we have fewer ships in the Navy, and Obama quipped, yeah, we have fewer horses and bayonets too. So we've seen warfare now go from boots on the ground to eyes in the sky. And to Lionel's point, we trivialized the kill. Yeah. That's somebody's child out there. It's a little too easy to go to war.
And we have to remember, too, is that we're seeing the same amount of PTSD in the drone operators that you see in a regular soldier, because at the end of the day, they know it's not a video game. When I hit that button and that person disappears on my black and white or colored screen in this trailer,
anguish.
I just took a life. That's anguish. And plus, they're working.
Well, and it's a lot.
You go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's a lot easier to make mistakes using drones, and we've seen that happen with drone pilots as well. We know there are a lot of documented cases. In fact, there was a drone strike, I believe it was just 1 week ago, where 10 people were killed in Afghanistan who were not fighters. They were not Taliban or Al-Qaeda. These were actual people at a wedding who were killed by a drone by accident. It happens far too often. So even though drones, we hear about them being promoted as well, it's safer because there's fewer American or pilot deaths or soldier deaths. That may be true. But what's not true is that there are fewer deaths associated with them. In fact, the number of deaths because of collateral damage is actually higher with drones than it is in conventional warfare.
Well, see, that's, again, it goes back to semantics, and Ben's right. When we talk about, remember, smart bombs and smart this, well, now there are weapons that say to whom it may concern, and basically we will hope that we hit on target, and then when we make a mistake, it'll be called friendly fire or collateral damage. This sounds almost like a Carlin routine, but we will literally absent ourselves from moral responsibility by giving it a different name, to remove ourselves, and then again, just to say, look, this is the way it goes. Actually, you're going to see fewer Vietnam memorials, fewer Americans, so those are the breaks. If you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs.
You want
Dangerous
to
stuff.
look up collateral damage in the dictionary. There's Hiroshima.
Yeah.
At least this is a laser beam.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I want to also move over to this other topic because this was really intriguing. And actually, Lionel, you brought this to my attention this week. So you have this couple, like all good modern couples today, they buy their Nest camera and their doorbell and their thermostat, and they're living with a smart home, and these computers are running everything. And then hackers come in, they hack their Wi-Fi, leads into their Nest, and suddenly you're living in a haunted house where you have voices coming over your speakers, and people are turning up your thermostats, and it really shows on a very macro level. This is really dangerous stuff we're playing with when strangers can enter your home through these devices. Have we given up? I mean, we know that we've given up personal privacy, for the kind of home gadgety gimmicks, but are we giving up too much of our safety as well?
Absolutely. In fact, let's take this next to insulin pumps, to pacemakers, to different types of brain implants that can affect seizure disorders. If I have one of these and I can override a person's house, I can override your heartbeat or your brain. I can do a lot of things. So this is almost like a very kind of funny, but this is precisely what we're looking at right now, because we have created a situation which, and by the way, there's no return. You don't come back. You don't say, you know what, hold it, stop. Let's go back to the key. And let's go back to the carbon paper. It's not going to happen.
It isn't. It isn't. And that, to me, that raises a question, and I'll ask you, Ben, and then Holland. How do we balance, kind of our need for the fun gimmicks and the leisure things that we like to experiment with, that we like to have, with the need for our own safety and security when it comes to this, Ben?
Sure. Well, a couple of things. Number one, and Lionel's absolutely right. We're not going to ever go backwards. The question is, how do we go forwards in a safe way? Well, one of those ways is I would almost guarantee you that this family, bought a router for their Wi-Fi, probably never even changed the password. They probably kept whatever password was on it when they bought it at the store, so they were probably easily hackable. A lot of people do that, right? They're very easily hackable because they think, why would anyone want to be on my Wi-Fi? Well, because now your door locks are on your Wi-Fi, your refrigerator's on your Wi-Fi. And so everything is connected to that. And so the more connected you become through a Wi-Fi signal, you can be hacked. Right. So basic steps of protecting that and securing, those Wi-Fi logins are very important. And that's the most basic thing you can do. Yeah. Protect yourself when you buy a router, when you set up your internet, and change your password.
Great points.
Now, on the lighter side, and he may shun me at Thanksgiving dinner for telling this story, but my brother-in-law did this.
Really?
They got a place down in Hilton Head, and they told my brothers, go ahead, use our place while we're not home. Meanwhile, back in Connecticut, Mark is turning the thermostat up to the 90s, and my brother kept turning it down. Maybe you saw the story. I think it was in New Hampshire. Guy comes home, and sitting in the driveway, crated up, a water heater had been delivered.
Wow.
And they ascertained that the parrot and Alexa were having a conversation which was misinterpreted as ordering the water heater. And of course, the guy's credit card was on file. So it happens.
I think it does. And that's a great point on a lighter side of it. And I think that I agree with what everyone's saying here is that when you have these technologies, understand what you're buying, understand what you're allowing into your home, and then take the necessary precautions if you want to buy it.
We need a Manhattan Project. We need a kind of a Russell Committee. We need citizen input. We sit back like slaves and say, look, there's nothing we can do. Whether it's gene splicing, whether it's any kind of DNA, GMO, it doesn't matter. We sit back and we feel like, well, look, if industry is going to come up with that, there's nothing we can do. Wait a minute. Yes, we can. There has to be either, I don't want to bring government into it, but a subcommittee, a Russell hearing, something,
Consumer
a
Protection
tribunal
Bureau.
where we can say, explain this and not feel like we just have to sit back and watch as passive victims of this.
Well, that is definitely something none of the four of us at this table do, is sit back and watch things passively. I want to thank you all for coming on today. Ben Swan, Lionel, Holland Cook, host of The Big Picture. Always a pleasure having the three of you on. Thank you so much.
I'm Larry King. Questioning, listening, learning. You know, I've always said I never learned anything when I was talking. It's important to listen. Question more.